Understanding the chancellor's vision to connect the school to the community and the position you're in, and that seems to be your vision too. And it seems as though not only is it your vision, it's something you were actually doing prior to coming here. But as you said, maybe just in an area was more like a silo than anything else, where it wasn't really a whole institution. Give us your comments and thoughts about where do you see, or what do you see the role of the School of Public Affairs and Administration under your leadership as it relates to that vision of Chancellor, Dr. Chancellor, of Chancellor Cantor?
Sure. So public service is at the core of what public affairs and administration is. We train people to work in governmental and non-governmental sectors, primarily federal, state, local, and in the nonprofit sector. Some of our students also go on to work in business. So with that public service focus in mind, the difference between here and other public affairs programs is that service learning type piece, the public engagement piece. At our very core, our school fully embraces the idea of service at every level. That is, our students have mandatory internships, for example. We want them to go out into the community, get some service, get some experience, and come back. We have professors in our program that serve as adjuncts. They have practical application that they can bring. So marrying what we bring in terms of theory as full-time professors and what they bring in terms of practical application, that is the perfect synergistic relationship to really build these core thoughts of public service. Now, what I'm doing is not necessarily new. The previous dean also embraced the whole idea of public engagement. My goal is to bring it up a little bit higher than where he left it. I really would like to see more faculty involved in community engagement. I'd like to see students more involved. And there's some things institutionally we can do within the program to really bring the program up. I want the School of Public Affairs and Administration to be the #1 program in the country, and by far the to-go place for residents of Newark, public agencies in Newark, organizations in Newark. I want them to think about us when they think about community engagement.
That's a good segue into the next question I want to raise with you, and that's exactly, as it relates to Newark, what do you actually see the major issues facing Newark and the challenges that need to be addressed surrounding these issues?
So I'm going to give you two responses to that question. When my wife and I moved here, one of the things I did is just kind of took the tour.
Okay.
And I didn't know a lot about Newark other than what I found on the internet, but there's nothing like a first-hand accounting. So when we drove around Newark, I noticed that Newark really isn't that diverse. When we walk around the streets of Newark, and we walk a lot here, I primarily see two races of people, Black and Hispanic. Now there may be some Portuguese mix in there, but I don't see a lot of white people. When I go to the outlying communities, the suburbs, I see a fairly substantial population demographic change. With that said, history tells us that there are things that come with communities that are homogenous versus those that are more diversely populated. Newark looks a lot like Memphis in some sense. Memphis is majority African American, but over time there's been a population shift. I'm not sure that's occurring in Newark. So with that said, the issues that I see just walking around, and I think there's probably some validity to these things, is there's a fairly substantial homeless population in Newark, and I see quite a few people. I see an aging infrastructure. When I walk around, I see a lot of closed buildings. I've read some articles that highlight housing issues. Given the number of homeless people and the rhetoric, I think there's probably a substantial employment issue. And I'll be very frank with you. The biggest shock for me and my wife moving here has been the cost of things. Clearly, I'm a middle-class person, but I think about people who are not.
Yes.
It can really sting the pocketbook to live here. And so having a living wage, I think is very critical here. Now, there's some other things. I'm sure if I talk to the mayor and his staff, I'll get a whole bunch of other things. I read an article that said there was 2,000 empty homes in Newark. I was just blown away with that number. That 2,000, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, you know, I could probably recommend a whole bunch of purposes for those properties, but no one's asked. So there's some systems, there's some ways to get involved. I don't want to create issues that aren't there, but I definitely want to work with the city and local agencies and helping them solve some of the issues that they see are paramount to the city moving forward. There's a lot of potential for economic development in Newark. It just has to be manifested through some collaborations, I believe.